Okay, this is chapter 8. Actually, let me pause this for 1 second. All right, so chapter 8 is about vulnerabilities, and we have an assignment based upon about vulnerabilities, not specifically on this, but let's go through and talk about a few of these things. Okay, Windows. Do you think Windows has more vulnerabilities than Linux, for instance?
Yes.
Pretty sure it does. Wow, yeah, she spoke. It's not normal to have someone speak to you online, which is actually a good thing, so save it on there. But the thing is, you got to remember now, more people are running Windows than Linux or whatever as well. So, that's how you might see a lot. They talk, I tell you, I ran an ISP for years, and prior to Server 2004, like it says at the top there, everything was enabled by default initially. Like in Windows 2000 and NT4, everything was enabled, everything was turned on. And you had to go turn it off. I still remember when Server 2004 came out, I bought all brand new machines. And I actually had an issue. I had to call Microsoft when they thought I pirated their software because my version date was wrong. Well, theirs, it didn't match theirs. They thought I literally pirated my software. It turns out that I bought it pre-installed from Dell, and the OEM version that was given to Dell was actually an earlier version by a few days than what Microsoft was selling. So they were okay with it. But what sucked was I'm used to everything being turned on and enabled. I get new servers, and everything's turned off and disabled. And I'm trying to real quickly bring up these websites, and nothing's working. I literally had to go turn on every option. It was very stressful to figure out how to do it all, because if it was on by default initially, you don't know how to turn it back on. It was already on. So, yeah, that was a nightmare. I finally did get through it, but yeah, it drove me crazy I had websites down for hours because I came over and it was like, nothing's working, and I had to enable this and this and this and this and this. So.
I remember when we started having issues with our computer way back when, and we had to get out of Microsoft, and they're like, well, oh, you go in and do this, you need to disable this because it started having a problem. It was something that was enabled by default.
Yeah, it sucked. It was tough. Okay. I said Windows 10 and so on. Now pretty much everything is disabled, and we're used to that now, which is a good thing. In Ubuntu, all ports are closed by default, which is a good thing. So, there's a lot of differences there. There is something called the CVE, which stands for Common Vulnerabilities and Exploits. Whoops. No, it's exploits. Exploits. That's a typo on my end. I wrote that in there. But basically, they tell you of issues out there. And we're going to actually be doing a project with that today. They list a few of them. I don't know why they even list a few of them here. Because you'd be listening for days. There's so many. There's vulnerabilities all the time. And what a lot of people don't realize is, okay, so we have a vulnerability and we fix the vulnerability, but sometimes that vulnerability's fix causes other vulnerability. Exactly. I fix this and it causes that, but, I'll tell you a quick story. I got an old chain set right over here at Huderberg Toyota on my Prius. And they call you, they want you to do all this extra work. They're going over all this stuff wrong. They're like, yeah, your serpentine belt's old, dirty, and cracked. That is. I said, no, dude, I had that changed like 2 months ago. And he's like, and your right tail light's out. I says, no, it's working fine. The left one's out. It's like, oh, but your license plate lights have burned out. I says, no, I just replaced those myself as well. It's like, what the heck? What they had done was, in the past, some of the stuff was wrong. I'm not going to pay them to change the light bulb. They just left it all on there and just, we didn't fix it for them. Obviously, it's still bad. Oh, I wasn't happy. And I called the sales manager. I'm like, how do you know the belt's bad? I changed it. Oh, well, maybe it was just dirty. Then why'd you put it was dirty and cracked and needed to be replaced and all this stuff? So, yeah, I gave him a really bad comment on that. And
I don't blame you. I've not had a problem with it.
I said, how do I trust any of your work? And in the past, in the Chevy dealer, I went in there and my tire pressure is supposed to be at 38. I set mine at 48 to 50 because I get better gas mileage with that. So I would go in there and I would have it set high. It was funny. One day they marked down to check your tire pressure. And I was going to go in and raise it back up. And it was still up. So I'm like, wait a minute. You didn't check my tire pressure because they would have lowered it. Because they always say set to factory defaults or whatever. But it's like, what the heck are y'all doing? So, yeah. The reason I had to tell you this, because on the survey it says, did you tell anybody about it? Yep, just told a whole bunch of people. There you go. So, but there are a lot of vulnerabilities out there. People get upset with Microsoft. But, I mean, we even talked about just typing in Ruby code and make spelling errors and stuff, and you don't catch stuff. There's no way you can catch it all, okay? Okay, there's a lot explained there. Some are very complex. You're going to have to find one today. Hopefully you don't find a complex one. Okay, testers basically look for vulnerabilities, look to see if packages have been installed, go from there, okay? File systems. Remember what a file system is. That's where we store our files. Easy enough there. FAT is old, file allocation table. 16 was FAT16 and FAT32, but really it had no security built in. Okay. Yeah, there was no ACLs. We didn't have the ability back then to say, you know, give Liz permission, but not, you know, Michael. We didn't have that capability through the file system itself. File names. Y'all know how file names are stored? They're stored in 8-character chunks. So even though now with FAT32 we can have long file names, you realize they're still stored in 8-character chunks. An example of this, I can't remember the exact number, but I think you're limited to 400 files in the root directory of any device. So if you're ever copying a bunch of stuff to a flash drive or something, I'm pretty sure you're limited to 400 entries. And if you have short file names, that's 400 files. But if you have long file names, that could be a lot less. Because I had this issue many years ago where I was trying to copy the files to it. It's like whatever the size was, I'm copying a lot less than the size, but it kept getting full. It was because of the file names. Each one is stored. So if you have a super long name, you might be using 10 allocation units just to store the darn name. So, but yeah, the FAT had issues. We're still using it today. What are we using it with today, anybody? Yeah, but what are we using FAT32 with? Flash drives, exactly. All flash drives format to FAT32. You can change them to NTFS, but you know, most of us don't. Okay, NTFS, new technologies, and you know, I'm still surprised it's called that, because if you're talking food or you know groceries, they can only use the name new for 6 months, unless they change a certain percentage of the stuff. Well, we've been using new technologies since 1996, 97. Not new anymore. So it's
it just becomes TFS.
Yeah, I was like, why is it still calling it? But it does support security, and it also supports transactions processing, which is, oh my God, amazing. I had a client who ran an accounting system on his server. He lost it. It literally got corrupt. Every table was corrupt, and we couldn't do nothing. And actually, there was a client of mine, so I don't have to fix it. I rebooted it, ran check this with a /F to do a fix, and it actually rebuilt the entire file system based on the transaction log, and they lost nothing. I was like, I saved the day. I didn't have to restore no backups or nothing. Because every time a change is made, it actually keeps a record of it in the database, which is kind of a nice thing. Okay, it does support alternate data streams. It actually got that capability from Macintosh file systems. Think of it like a properties page, but with alternate data streams, you can actually store a file inside of a file. Okay, it's called a resource fork. One of these maybe do a project in it, but you can take Notepad and you can actually copy a picture on top of Notepad. You're not overwriting exe, but you're storing in the resource fork of that executable, so you can access it. The bad thing is, if you look at your file system itself, you won't see that file listed. You'll have to use a special tool to be able to see the alternate data stream. And it doesn't take up any space, although it takes up space. So when Windows does the space calculation, it doesn't take into account the alternate data streams, but they're actually taking up space. So it might tell you got 5 gigs free. There's someone stored 3 gigs in an alternate data stream. Now I only have 2 gigs free. The operating systems can tell you 5 gigs free. So it's kind of weird the way they work. But yeah, it came from Macintosh. Okay, there are some tools, ADS, streams. There's a bunch of different tools you can play with. Microsoft even has them on the website. They're kind of cool to do. Okay, RPC, Remote Procedures Call. That gives us the ability to run code remotely. Okay? So why would we want to run code remotely? I mean, you see a need for that? We have networks today. I mean, obviously stuff has to happen remotely. Group policy is pushed out, updates are made. There's a lot of stuff that happens remotely. So we really can't get rid of it. And a lot of worms like Conflict and a bunch of other ones actually took advantage of that and caused issues. All right, there's something called the Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer. I do not like this tool. They're going to actually, they'll talk about it more here in a minute, but it's just, yeah, we'll talk about it in a minute. NetBIOS. NetBIOS, it's a way of accessing the network using NetBIOS and stuff like that. Not really needed today, but still used today. It's really been replaced with TCP/IP, but it's still there. Okay, so it's kind of, it's not needed, but it's still there. So obviously there's vulnerabilities in that as well. Okay, it says newer OSs share files and resources without using NetBIOS, but I can connect to my Office machine using its NetBIOS name. So we're still using NetBIOS. Okay, yeah, it's still out there, and I don't know if it'll ever totally go away. It's one of those things we have to leave it there just in case something, whatever. Okay. All right. SMB, server message block, allows us to share files. If you use Macintosh or Linux, a lot of times, like when you connect to a share from a Macintosh system, you have to specify SMB, which means kind of like FTP or HTTP, you specify SMB to tell it you're connecting over Windows. Kind of a file share. Okay. There's a lot of tools that use that, exploit that, Loftcrack, a bunch of other ones. Okay. It took Microsoft 7 years to patch some of the vulnerabilities. Yeah, and if you read the book Countdown to 0 Days, which is an amazing book all about the Stuxnet virus, they talk about how that one virus, they used 4 0-day exploits. And the people have been out for years, but no one ever told anybody, and we used them. So it's crazy. It might take them years, but maybe no one told them about it. So, okay, Sp18 came out new, has new features. Faster, more efficient. Is it safer? I don't know. I really don't know. Windows 7 says avoided reusing code. Still backwards compatibility. I think it was, which one included the file integrity checker? Is that 7 or XP? So basically, if you were to put a DLL in there, okay, well, what the integrity checker does is if you put a DLL in there, and it's not the correct version, it checks its integrity database and overwrites one you just put in there, which is a very good feature. But some viruses actually went in there and started overwriting the DLL in the integrity checkers database. Then it would take that and overwrite the other DLL. So it's kind of a cool system. I think it was XP. Okay. CIFS, Common Internet File System, allows us for sharing over the internet, sharing over networks, okay? Sharing over network resources. Years ago, I haven't done this in a long time. I can't do it here because we block it. Try to add a printer at home. And no, try to go add a printer and connect to a network. And basically just let it query the internet. People leave printers out there all the time. I do. I had years ago, one of my clients was having an issue. They couldn't print. And back then we're all using NetBIOS, so we were sharing via file name or via machine names. But he called me and says, I'm over the phone trying to figure this out. He's got his printer installed, it's got the right name. Every time he hit print, it says it printed, but it never printed. Well, what he had done was when he typed the name of the printer, kind of like mine, BS10401. Well, maybe if I type BS104011, in other words, I added an extra letter or something. But when he mapped his printer, he added an additional letter or spelled it wrong, whatever he did, and it actually connected to a system on the internet with that name that just happened to have a printer. So he kept printing to it. No idea where it came from. I used it because I used to be part of a couple different corporations, and one of them, my partner lived up in Edmonton. And I mapped to her printer, and she mapped to my printer. So if I needed to give her something, I could email it to her. If I wanted to print, I literally could just hit print, select her printer on the internet, which obviously was not a good plan because it was unsecured. but I could print to it. Yeah, it was. I mean, you just sitting there, printers going off like, what's that?
It takes forever.
Well, it's the same thing with Hillary Clinton, you know? Didn't they say her printers were wide open on the internet? So, I mean, it's scary. People do that and you don't realize it. Nancy Burley, public relations, she does a lot of romance author books. And I used to take care of all of her stuff. And it was funny because one day I went up there, she's having a little computer problem. I'm asking her, okay, where's your firewall? I don't know. I don't know. She had nothing. Back then, if you hired Cox to install your network, they would come out and hook up your cable modem. And in that case, she connected it to a switch and plugged her machines in. There was absolutely no router whatsoever. So I started looking at her IP address, and it's a public IP address. Like, you can't buy. This is stupid. Why would you have each machine in your network with a publicly addressable IP? And she was paying for each additional IP. Because they only gave you one for free. You had to pay a fee to get every additional IP. And she was like, well, that's the way they do it. Well, first of all, Cox is not in the, back then at least, we're not in the business of selling you security. They were selling you an internet connection. So I kept telling her, it's bad. No, that's the way they did it. That's fine. No, bro, no. I said, you need to buy a router. No, it's fine. So, okay, I went back to my house. I remotely connected in from my machine straight into her IP address. I called her. I said, Nancy, how was whatever she was writing? I said, how's the document going? What? I said, yeah, I see you got this document up on your screen. Because literally everything was open, and I could literally see the file she had open. And she's like, how do you know that? I'm like, oh, I told her all the stuff about all her stuff. Here's what your secretary's got open. Here's what you got open. I can read. She's like, oh my God, I need you to come back immediately. I'm like, okay, thank you. But people don't realize that. And stuff like this, oh, this is awesome. But if you don't do it securely, you got problems. Okay? Like it says at the bottom, it notifies people of available resources. Hey, I got a printer. You want to share it? That kind of stuff. Okay. And I was actually in a very long meeting yesterday with our technology committee, and I brought up the question of two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. I don't know what that is, hopefully by now. It is being enabled here on campus. Well, not yet. But it is now in the strategic plan. So they have to get to it sooner or later. So I mean, I think it's stupid we don't have it yet. But if you guys haven't enabled it on your accounts yet, you need to.
I did the assignment for ISM on that.
Okay.
And then I went out and went into the Fusion 360.
Yeah.
And it brought it up to have me to do it on that because it hadn't done it when we first signed up for it. And then I opened it back up. It's doing it. It was really kind of funny.
Yeah, and you know, is it a pain? Yes. I have to actually each morning when I get here, I have to put in a code. So what? At least, at least it's secure. So it's like, even if you had access to my machine, you couldn't get access to my LastPass database, which has all my stuff in it, because you need a separate code for that. Even if you have the username and password, you need another code. So yeah, you need to get that turned on. Okay. So some more features, locking features, caching features. But with every feature, there's always another problem. Okay. So the attackers look for servers designated domain controllers. We kind of looked at that a couple weeks ago. Okay. Null sessions. It's an anonymous connection established without credentials. So if I connect to your machine and don't log in, I just have a connection. That's considered a null session until I've been authenticated. There's problems with that. Some systems allow you to connect without authenticating, then actually access resources. Kind of think of it like a guest account with no password. So that's what that is. And there's obviously a lot of issues with that. Okay. Web services. I hate IIS Lockdown Wizard. Again, same time period, 2004 or so. If you ran IIS Lockdown, it's just like Trend Micro. Does anyone use Trend Micro in here? They have good products, good tools. But a client of mine, actually a friend of mine, the chiropractic person y'all had to find, she ran it. Actually, I don't know if she still does, but she ran it for years, and it would always pop up. Hey, you're not running the most secure way possible. Would you like me to enable maximum security? Well, she's a paranoid person, so what do you say? Yeah. Yes. It disconnects your network, closes every port, and now she goes, Ken, I have no internet. let me guess, you enabled maximum security. Well, it was recommended. I said, yes. But, yeah, same thing with this IIS lockdown wizard. IIS is Internet Information Server. It's the web server for Microsoft. What it did was you ran it, it locked down everything. And I ran hundreds of websites, some of them with different settings on them, and it turns off everything. Like, what was on there?
When you're setting up a virtual machine, Windows Server, Internet Explorer 11 keeps trying to pop in there.
Right.
And if you press the security, it locks down everything.
Right. It's tough.
I did that accidentally, and I was like, what did I do?
It's hard to do sometimes.
Yeah, I had to figure out how to do it.
So I'm not a huge fan of it. I know there's a why it's there, but it just causes a lot of issues sometimes. Okay. IIS 6 and above, they are secured by default, which is nice. So, all right. Keeping your system patches report, we know about that. Microsoft SQL Server, there was a big issue, I think, it was early 2000s. Funny because when I got my own ISP at my house, a friend of mine had an ISP, Internet Service Provider. He provided me with his configuration, since his worked, and he was using it for years. Then I replicated his configuration onto my systems and changed IPs and all that and passwords. But then one day they came out with the SQL Slammer virus, early 2000s. And what it did was it looked for a SQL server that was online somewhere that had a specific vulnerability. And I don't know if it had to have the blank password, whatever it had. But he calls me up and he's freaking out. He's like, oh my God, my entire database is down. The worm hit the database, took it offline. And since I have the same configuration, he's like, you're dead. No, I'm fine. It's like, what do you mean fine? Well, I knew his configuration. I used his configuration immediately. But again, the way he did it was you let everything in and block the bad stuff. Okay? So let every student in, and if you're a bad guy, I'm going to kick you out. That's how it worked. Okay? Is that a good idea when setting up? No, you lock everything out, then let in the good stuff. So within a few months of setting up my ISP, I reconfigured my systems. And Bill Richards, some of you know Bill Richards, I hosted a server for him. And when I did the conversion over, what I did was I captured traffic for a couple weeks. I looked at to see what was being used legitimately to make sure that was allowed in. Then I blocked it. I blocked everything, but let this stuff in. The only thing I missed was Bill Richards happened to be on vacation and had not connected with his VPN remotely during the time when I was capturing the traffic. So when I enabled it, I didn't enable VPN. So it's the only thing I missed. So when this guy calls me freaking out, he's like, oh my God. I said, oh no, dude, I don't allow it in. And since I didn't allow it in, it wasn't allowed in. Where his on the other way, until he knew there was a problem with it, he was letting everything in. So I told him, I don't have a problem. So I ended up sending my configuration to him to redo his network. So yeah, big deal. Yeah. See, there's still ATMs out there running this. Yeah. I actually ran NT4 for quite a few years after it was replaced now. And the only reason it got replaced, I ran it for St. Philip Mary Catholic School over here on Felix and 15th. They didn't want to replace it because it was working. They're talking, why replace it? Well, it was sitting in a storage closet on the floor. Not a good idea. That's where it was sitting for years. Well, they came in and stripped the floor. And I guess whatever the stripping agent, when they swapped it with a mop, went around the back of the server and ate right through the back of the server within a few hours. And it literally, they called me, hey, the server's out. I was like, wow, literally the metal was gone. It was so acidic. They right there. I'm like, you can pick it up and hear parts shaking. And it's like, oh boy. I have no idea. It was bad.
Is pretty
were they doing like were they revarnishing the floor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Catholic schools really like varnish.
Yeah. This was in the closet. It hadn't been done in a lifetime.
So much varnish.
So they probably, they were always cleaning it, but they never stripped it. So they stripped it. And, So after that, obviously I moved it. It wasn't my fault. It was on the floor. But there was nowhere to put it. It was basically, they had a freezer and something, a refrigerator, and I had a little bit of room in the middle, and that's all I had. And
Still, if you're gonna do the floors, you should
they,
take stuff
You
up
could have
off
put it
the
on, you could have
floors.
stolen milk crates from cafeteria.
I know,
Set
I
it up
know.
on milk.
my fault, I made a lot of problems. Yeah, that same network, when I took it over, it was funny because I had this one computer that was intermittent. And I found out that in the wall, not in the wall plate, but back behind the wall plate, about this far into the wire, somebody cut it, cut the network cable, twisted it together with black tape. And it worked sometimes, but sometimes it didn't. Because that was the hardest thing to troubleshoot on my work. Yeah. Then it didn't work. And it did work, and you plug in the cable, you're moving the wire, oh, it's working. Then it go off again. Yeah, it was black tape. I was like, wow.
Every Apple charger I've ever had.
Okay, let's continue on. Buffer overflows, I think we've talked about them before. A buffer, figure, if you're going to store 5 letters, that's your buffer size. You should only be able to put 5 letters in that space. But C and C++, they don't care. They'll put 250 letters in that place. So the problem is, bad guys would find out where something's stored. And a lot of operating systems, you can find out, okay, the first thing in memory is here, the second thing is here, what loads at different locations. So what they'll do is they'll take an exploit string of some sort and copy it to a buffer at a specific location to overwrite that plus the next couple things stored in memory to make it do different things. And Java fixes that. Java, try putting 11 things in a 10 element array. It doesn't work. But in C, no problem. Put in 200. It's like, okay, it just stores it after it. What it does is it calculates the size of each element. And if you're putting in 200, it's that size times 200, and it puts it right there. So big deal with buffer overflows. And you should really check it. I teach a Java class as well, and I was on the discussion today. One of the students gave an example of checking a number. In other words, when you ask for a number, check and make sure it's a number. Because if you ask for a number and someone puts in a letter, what happens? Kills it. So I brought up the question, well, that's excellent. That's a very good thing to do. But should we do that every single time we get input for a number? I would say yes. Because have you ever gone on a web page somewhere and put in something wrong and it crashes or does something wrong? So really, we should be checking all inputs. Right? Back when I ran my ISP, I used a program called VPASP. It was a shopping cart system. And there was an exploit for it, which we weren't aware of. If you did a search for a specific product, it was actually SQL injection what it was. You did a specific search. It's kind of like saying, if you're searching for a shirt, it does the search if, shirt, if product equals shirt. And if it returns true, it displays the shirt, okay? Think of it like that. Well, what you could do in there is say if product equals shirt or 1 equals 1. So instead of just the word shirt, you put shirt or 1 equals 1. So would that be true at all times? All times. And then in that same sentence, you set administrator password to 1234. You put the command in that. So what happens is, even though you're just searching for a shirt, if product equals search or 1 equals 1, semicolon, if it's true, drop table or set password to whatever. They literally did that to reset the administrator password to get in and install all the crash files. It's crazy stuff, but people do that. And buffer overflow is one of those issues. We all know what passwords are. We have to get rid of them soon. They're going to be gone soon. I mean, think about it. New iPhone, it's your face. Microsoft Surface is the same way. I want to have a Surface where it uses, what is it, hello or something that's called on it. I don't know what that could call. Actually works very well. And I was worried with my iPhone, it even works with sunglasses on. I don't know what it checks on my face, but it checks a bunch of stuff.
Certain points it's usually around the
But it also
eyes,
checks the drives a little bit. Because sometimes my stepdaughter will want to get into my phone, so she'll grab it, stick it in front of my face. I just close my eyes and she can't get it. She's like, darn it. So she'll shove it in front and I'll look away or something.
That's a cycle from We can't get into their phone and sleep them.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, it's really good. Actually. It works. I was amazed at how well it works.
Now, they gotta get better at it because my boys look enough alike that they can open each other's phones.
They even said that when they first announced it. They said, identical twins will have an issue.
Well, my boys are 3 years apart, but they look enough alike
Wow.
that they, their features.
Then they said, we recommend using a passcode instead on those phones.
Yeah.
My dad's a twin.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right. So passwords, I was at in Vegas 2 years ago, and the keynote speaker talked about passwords. So it's a good idea to change our passwords. She says no. Here's the reasoning why. We start off with a good password. 3 months later, we change it for another good password. And 3 months later, another password. So we're getting tired of it. So we just added one to the end. Or two. What Ed did, he goes, I'm so excited. I can go back to my original password. He literally had them all right now.
We get
I
lazy.
should listen and goes back. We get lazy.
NES is actually recommending us not to change them and so forth. Because the other thing is the hackers find out, okay, they change it every 3 months. So we know we got it until this time.
Right.
They're going to have a new one then. And
So it's not a good idea to change it too frequently. But you really need something long. It needs to be around 20 characters. You need to be uppercase, lowercase. Put a space in the darn thing. Okay, I make a sentence out of mine too. And then you need a password. Okay, you must use a password manager. You must. It's a must. I use LastPass. There's a bunch of them out there. You have to have one.
LastPass is actually pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It's good. And it's now totally free. Because I'm literally up, because I've had the premium version, and it's up for renewal for me to pay it again. And I just checked last week. I'm like, okay, you want money from me? I knew they changed their business model. Now, for the stuff I use, the free version has it all. I'm like, delete credit card number. So no more premium.
Is there a premium version now, or is it just all free?
There is. There's the free version, the premium version, and a family share.
Yeah, I was going to say they have a family one.
Right. But what I use it for, see, I like to be able to use it with my phone as well. That was only available on the premium version until last year.
Oh, can you get it from them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I've had it on my phone forever. And the free version includes on your phone now.
Look at that.
So if you don't have something like that, it's called LastPass.com. Get it. It'll save your life. Okay. Require complex, just, we all know what passwords are, at least in this program, I hope. Enforce age, blank, complexity. Kind of enforcing time limits on quizzes. So we all forget them for a moment. So, okay. Lockout threshold obviously works because I got locked out in here the other day. Okay. All right. A lot of tools available. Some help you fix them even. If you've used LandGuard, that tool's amazing. It's not free. That's why we don't use it in here. When I ran my company, I had a copy and we would use it in school because I owned it. But I don't have it anymore. Nessus is good. There's just a lot of them out there. Okay, Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer, because that looks for all this problems on your machine. Okay. I like it, but sometimes it tells you there's problems when there aren't problems. Like when I ran my ISP, I had a lot of ports open. I had a lot of specific settings for a reason that this tool didn't like. So I'd have, 85 errors, and it's like, no, they're not 85 errors. Leave me alone. So it's a good tool to run if you never ran it before. But
What do you think about OpenBus?
what?
OpenBus?
That's another good one. Yeah, I think that's coming up here in a second. So there's a lot of free ones out there too. There's a lot of different tools. Okay. Because after installing, it can scan a cell, can scan computers. There's a lot of so best practices. I thought this slide was stupid. Here's our best practices. You ready? A penetration tester finds the problems, and a tester finds vulnerabilities and gives recommendations. That's it. There's literally no other best practices. I'm like, that's not even best practices.
That's not even like,
Those are just words.
I know. No.
that's basically defining a pen tester version.
I know. The title didn't match the slide. Hey, but what we do need to do is patch our system. Now, should we patch our systems immediately when the patch comes out?
No.
For the most part, yes.
Unless it's an iPhone.
Yeah. For the most part, yes. But if you're running a production system, the answer is no. You try it out first. Let your wife try out your iPhone update first. Then you do your iPhone update. But, Well, what was it? A year ago? Not a year ago. 6 months ago. Jimmy came in, was talking about something on because he got a new machine and with Windows 10, and his Windows updates were turned off. I checked mine. Sure enough, my machine hadn't been updated since 2015. This was 6 months ago. What they did was the image they built mine with was from 2015, and they never ran update on it, and they disabled it. They disabled the automatic update. So literally, I've been running updates forever. It took days to get all the updates done. It took forever. But yeah, Windows 10 pretty much does it automatically, unless you're on domains that they turn things off. So, okay. What the problem was here, there's very few Windows 10 machines on campus. And they are not downloading the updates onto their update server. So when my machine was connecting to the Rose State's update server, there was no updates needed. So I had to go out and tell it to get it from Microsoft, yes.
Do you know how it verifies that it's an update from Microsoft or whatever? Just couldn't someone just send out like, oh, hey, this is
They
from
go through
Microsoft?
certificates. And actually, there was a problem a few years back where someone had forged the Microsoft certificate. But before it downloads it, it does check the certificate of where the file is coming from to verify it's from Microsoft. They do. And but yeah, there was an issue where someone forged a certificate, and then they had the issue was called a CRL, Certificate Revocation List, basically to wipe out all Microsoft certificates and give out new ones because they were exploited. And there was actually an issue, I think, in Asia or China somewhere, where someone made an app for the iPhone and forged a certificate. And if you happen to get that app from that location, it could have potentially been bad. But it was only one time. So, okay. All right, antiviruses. Antiviruses are great. We need them. But they're all signature based. They only know about bad stuff. Okay, they do have heuristic scanning now where that potentially is bad. But really, they can only detect, it's like the Stuxnet virus. What's new? No one detected it because no one knew about it. Now, once they started putting the signatures out there, people started finding it. But, okay, they're almost useless if not updated regularly. People always ask me which one should we buy. Some of you in here probably have a VAST. That's fine. Get rid of it. Get the Microsoft one. If you're running Windows, get the Microsoft one. It's free. It's updated all the time. What happens is people will buy a machine from Dell or somebody, and they'll come with a 90-day version of McAfee, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and after 90 days, it's no longer updating.
And it just tells you that you need to update.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't update.
You need to do the preview version.
So get rid of that. See, I actually bought one called Giant. Years ago, Giant had the #1 antivirus. I tried all of them, but that was the best rated one at the time, so I actually paid for it. I actually buy software if I like it. I even bought WinZip, believe it or not. I actually own an official license to WinZip. But I bought Giant, and I really liked it, and I swear, 3 months after I bought it, Microsoft bought them out. They gave it away for free. I'm like, you suck. Why did I just wait 3 months? I could have had it for free. But use the Defender for Windows 10. Use Microsoft Security Essentials for Windows 7. They're about
Did you use anything besides Defender for Windows?
I like that, and I also like Malwarebytes. Yes. I don't subscribe and buy the pro version. I use the free version. But you have to run it. It's not going to automatically run.
Yeah.
But just run it once in a while. Run it maybe. What? Yeah, you can see it. But Malwarebytes and that are normally fine. You can get other ones, Spy by Search and Destroy. But I just think some of those are overkill. So.
The guy who actually invented the antivirus scanner, he actually recently posted a YouTube video on how to uninstall McAfee.
It's hard. Oh, do I have two? When we were at Tinker, I still remember they installed McAfee and Norton on the same machine. Done. Could not log in. So I remotely had to get in and remove one of them, mainly from the registry. Thank God they have FPC enabled on that machine. But I had to go in and delete every reference to whichever one to delete. I don't remember at the time. That sucks.
It doesn't matter which one, they're both hard to get out of there.
They are, and it takes forever.
Why are they so difficult to get out?
Well, because they link to everything. They need to link to network traffic. They need to link to the file system. They need to link to pretty much every darn program installed.
And it's not a simple uninstall function that they root into your
Yes.
system.
Yeah.
They do. Okay. So you need
Which
them.
is good.
Get one.
Bad.
Update them regularly. Okay, logging. Turn on logging, but be careful when turning on logging. When I ran my company, my logs were about 500 megs a day. And nowadays storage is cheap, but back then it wasn't. So, and you know, when I worked at Tinker, what they did, it was funny because they tasked me with figuring out how long this Windows server has been running. Well, in Linux, you just do uptime. In Windows, there's no command. So I figured out that event log entry 6005 and 6009, those two event log entries are on a system reboot. So we figured out how many of those there were, and then we figured if it's off for 5 minutes, then we could calculate how long the machine's been up. And it was funny, so did all this, and I went through this one machine, and the logs were all blank. What the? Oh yeah, we can't get these errors. The logs are full, so every morning we just delete them. I'm like, well, I guess you're not getting your data after all, because if you delete the logs, there's nothing I can do. But a lot of places do that. With my systems, when I ran them, I kept logs for 30 days. Google keeps them forever. Every search you ever made on Google will be there forever. It will never, ever be deleted. It was kind of sucks, because a lot of times I'll search for stuff for other people. Now, my history, or my browser, I'll get, you know, advertisements for stuff that doesn't pertain to me. It pertains to something I was looking at for somebody else. So it's obviously store all that stuff.
And then sometimes there's those random times when you're really curious about something.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
Nobody needs to know how weird you are.
Your deep dark.
I will tell you, if you use, I think it's called DuckDuckGo. I think that's the search engine.
Yes.
DuckDuckGo records nothing. Saves nothing. Now Google, they have what's called incognito mode or private, which is fine. It doesn't store it locally, but Google still keeps track of it. So DuckDuckGo is about the only way. I mean, y'all heard of Tor?
Yes.
Y'all know what Tor is? Get Tor. Tor is truly anonymous. Yes, your internet will be slower, but at least if you're on your porn site, no one will know about it. And that by default uses DuckDuckGo. It stores nothing. So, yeah, Tor is not a bad thing. It was actually developed by the Navy Department to help people in impoverished countries that were being, you know, like China, right, political dissidents. They do that to allow people to not know what the heck you're doing. Now, they have found ways of tracking Tor traffic. You read some of the books I've been reading, it's like, wow, how they figure it. They would actually send queries through Tor that are certain complexity that would cause the servers to heat up. Then you could actually look for electrical usage spikes, and it's like, wow, who would have thought of that?
Or they track your exit nodes.
Yeah, but still, if you have an exit node, how do you where to start at? So they would send something through. It's pretty amazing. But logging is a good thing for the most people. I got a call. If you look on my YouTube channel, there's one called "Spammer in My Machine." Watch that video. The guy calls us. I answered the phone. I real quickly got into a VM, and he got in remotely. And he had me bring up Windows logs. And there's a lot of informational events. They're just there. So he says, "You have anything?" "Oh, yes." "Oh, my God, you've got all these problems." So actually, he wanted me to pay money to help him come in, remotely fix my machine, steal all my data. But yeah, it's kind of funny. Go watch that video. It's like 45 minutes long, but it's hilarious. I will warn you, there is some bad language in it because the guy is trying to become my friend. "Hey, so what are you doing this weekend? You got any, blah, blah, you're going to do something?" You know, so just be warned. There's a little bit of bad language in there. So just not much, but.
So Arlene Hayes would really have an issue with
Yes. But I mean, I was right in the middle of recording. But what was funny was he kept running the tree command. You know what the tree command is? If you run the tree command, it basically just shows your tree. Your file system hierarchy. And it's just a lot of stuff. Well, he would do that. And what he would do is once he would issue the command, he would type something on this. Type something so that when the tree command ended, his command would show up. And they'd be like, oh, did you get something that says you got 85 viruses? Well, what I kept doing is I kept hitting Control-C. And would stop the tree command so that I could see him typing. You have 85 viruses. And then he would also, he kept issuing commands to blank my screen. It doesn't work on a virtual machine. So what he would do is he would think he's blanking my screen, and then he would go into my contacts. The guy had looked, it was actually a forensics machine I was using. It had NKs and NTK and all this stuff on it. Yeah, he probably did. But the only machine I had, so he was literally opening up all my stuff. So it's just, I said, oh, wow, my screen went blank. Yes, I'm fixing it for you. And then he started opening up everything. It was just hilarious. So you should watch the video. But logging, that's how he starts. You know, checks my event log. And, oh, you got all these errors. I need to get and fix that for you. So
there's an operating system called Tails that's designed out for built-in. It's also probably anonymous. So like it's designed to be on a flash drive to where you can plug them in, plug them and unplug them, and have no
record
whatsoever.
Nice. Yeah, download Tor browser. It's pretty awesome. Okay, and about that, real quick, you know, we all use Google. Did you know Google only indexes 16% of the internet? The rest of the internet is the dark web, basically. It's not accessible without Tor and stuff like that. So we're only using this much of the internet, just a small portion of it. Yes. Okay, other things. Disable unneeded services, delete unnecessary applications, reduce, you know, just fix stuff, okay? Best practices, minimize the number of administrators. You don't ever run as administrator, even though we all do. But I kind of like Windows 10. It's annoying, but you have to run as administrator, even if you're logged in as administrator.
Yeah.
So they're trying to make it better, because if you log in as administrator, running as administrator, if you click on a virus, it now has administrator rights to install. If you run as a normal user, it can't, okay? Restrict the applications allowed to execute on the computer, you know, delete hidden shares, okay? Okay, be careful with default parameters, okay. Use file integrity checker, disable disk accounts, just lots of different things here. Use group policies, keep up with emerging threats, and hopefully you guys read the news. And I subscribe to Hacker News Daily on Facebook. It's really good. They talk about the vulnerabilities and the exploits, and they have training classes that are free. So on Hacker News Daily, it's pretty good.
Do you have to go through Facebook?
I just have it in there because it just pops up daily. There's probably another. You can probably go straight to their website.
Good, because I don't like Facebook.
That's, yeah, Facebook's evil. You know, it was funny because a lot of people are like, what, doesn't use Facebook? You know, but just by not using Facebook, it doesn't mean you can't be exploited through Facebook. The example I gave Stephanie was, okay, Miguel, her son is what, 3 years old. He doesn't have a Facebook account, but she posts about him all the time.
Yeah.
So people are finding information about him through other people.
That's why I don't get not to tag me in photos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Talk about like,
And
yeah.
I actually just learned this the other day. I learned all this great stuff. I told somebody in here, you know, I'm assuming somebody likes OU football. Somebody in here. I could care less. But you notice how none of those players have Facebook accounts? They don't post anything. Because to work for the Normandy Police Department or to be a member of OU Athletics, you must turn over all passwords to all social media accounts.
Because they know better.
Yeah. That's why. None of them have accounts because they all had to turn them. You literally must turn it over if you want to play Norman Athletics. If you want to work for the police department, you must turn it over. Well, I asked Stephanie, so she's like, I couldn't do that. Well, I mean, but if you think about it, you never see them posting. Wouldn't you normally see all the OU players? Yeah, we just beat so-and-so. We're the best. Boomer, Sooner, whatever. Right. So, but they don't have accounts because they're not allowed to. So
why would I turn on my password just so they could post something ridiculous under my account?
Well, I think they do that to filter what's on your account,
Yeah.
make sure you're not posting anything.
Make sure
Well,
that
that's why
their
they
name
should have
isn't.
their own name, like their own account, and then they just.
Yeah, I'm willing to
Well-
bet they have some agreement. If you're playing for OU football, you are not going to open another account. If you do, blah, blah,
Well, that's
blah.
what I'm saying, like, OU football, just have like their own account,
Right.
with your friends, and then just review what they're
Yeah.
posting.
Fix it before anything goes out. Like if someone puts something that one
It's
of us
already out there.
see
I was
with
gonna
drugs or
say-
something.
The big deal between Kevin Durant and I think Westbrook sometime, like last year or
Oh, yeah.
something.
Or the
Accidentally
What someone posted, it's done. What'd someone say the other day? Darn you alcohol, that sounded like such a good idea last night to post that. You were wrong.
Yeah.
So, all right, Linux. Still vulnerabilities, different vulnerabilities, not as many vulnerabilities in some, depending on who you talk to, okay? Different file structure, different everything, okay? Samba is kind of like NetBIOS. It's used to access Windows resources. It's like SMB. It makes Windows think that Linux is Windows. So you can share files with that. That's how you share files there. They talk about vulnerabilities. You can actually go to the same website to find out vulnerabilities in Linux. Okay. OpenVAS, a really good program finding. I think it can actually help you fix vulnerabilities. I'm not 100% positive on that. I think it can. And there's like 5 pictures of it. Okay. A couple different tools here. Checking for Trojans. It says most Trojan programs perform. They allow people to get in remotely. That's what they do. Okay. They steal passwords. So how do you think most viruses propagate? Or how would my secretary's computer get infected?
Email?
Through email or clicking a link somewhere.
Yeah, they click on it.
Because the insiders are the biggest problem. There's probably not a problem with the firewall allowing that file through, but when someone clicks it, now you're downloading, now you're installing it, and now you're getting infected. So,
When I put John on, I ended up with something about a Trojan.
well, yeah, your machine will come up because John's considered a privilege escalation tool. So I was like, well, and I literally had to tell on my IT services because I was doing the John demo up in a classroom before, and literally every time I would run John, it would delete it. So I had to install it, run a command, delete it. Install it, run a command, delete it. It kept doing it for the entire lecture. Now they know, so there's literally a special policy in our antivirus tool at RoSafer can do it. Because I run Kane, I run John the Ripper, I run this stuff, and I have the ability to stop the virus scan, which other instructors do not. Because sometimes, I have lots of files, and sometimes I need to stop it, because if I'm running something, but they approved it and they gave me access, so literally there's a special group just for can do, so it's kind of handy. All right, so they can ransomware. You heard about? Y'all know what the crypto locker kind of stuff is? That's a problem out there. Okay. Sometimes programs with Linux or Windows are disguised as legitimate programs. Okay. Rootkits, very dangerous. That's actually what Stuxnet was. It infects way down at the kernel level, at the operating system level. So no matter what you do, you're infected. So y'all need to read that book. It's just truly amazing. I talked to Virginia into reading it. She's like, "Oh my God, I had no idea this." She's hooked on the book. It's amazing.
You can get that list up for us.
Okay. Now, okay. Actually, let me pause for 1 second. All right. So, again, rootkits are really bad. They're very hard to detect. Most antivirus will not detect them. All right. Okay. There we go. Awareness training. Keep current with your updates. Configure systems for improved security. Inform users. That's the big issue here. They don't tell users. They don't train people. Our training on email security was the stupidest training in history. And I reported. Oh no, this was bad. It was 5 questions. All email must be encrypted. True or false? The answer is false. Not all email must be encrypted, but the answer on the test was true. Like, who the heck wrote this stupid thing? And we don't even encrypt email here at Rose State. What we did is we bought some training package and it was stupid. Okay.
You have someone that
Okay.
They won't listen to you when you tell them certain things about.
Be suspicious of people calling you. You don't get a lot of telemarketer calls. I get them all the time. I just hang up now. I mean, the Association of Chiefs of Police. I donate to a lot of people. But that's not them calling. It's a marketing company calling on their behalf, and the Chiefs of Police get 10%. So you're not donating to the Chiefs of Police. Literally, the last one was, dude, you're harder to get a hold of than a monkey on lemonade or something. This is Bob from the Chief of Police. But it was the weirdest voicemail I've ever heard. It's probably still on my phone.
Sounds like Foghorn Leghorn trying to get your money.
It was, yeah, it was weird. Okay. Keep current, keep your stuff updated. Okay, we're just about done here. There's a program which I run on all my computers called HTTP Everywhere. It's a browser extension. Get it. HTTPS Everywhere, I'm sorry. HTTPS Everywhere. Installed as a browser extension. What it does, it asks every website, hey, if possible, can you secure this connection? MSN does not by default, but running HTTPS Everywhere, it does. So just run it. It tells every website, if you can possibly run securely, go ahead and do it. So run that. Okay?
You could, but sometimes if you're not paying attention, you really want to put that.
You might miss it. Installed extension, I've never had a single problem with it, not one. Okay, so that's the end of the chapter. And I'm going to stop this recording, then talk about your assignment.